that stream. It's a good setup, but I'm just making sure that we're there.
The one thing with StreamYard is
Yeah.
that it's just very hard to mess up. It's like so good, like good in that sense that it's easy to get
Oh well.
started. It's, hard to mess up and does what, needs to do.
And what about you? Can you see my screen this time? Because I believe with the other one that wasn't the case.
Yeah, I just see like exactly what the stream would look like. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. So same view.
Anyway, yeah. So we're live. Yeah, it's been a while. Hey, what's up? It's John from Coding Addict. Blah 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 blah. This is gonna be the live stream power hour, and as always, I'm joined by one and only Mr. Paul Bratlovsky. Yeah, we're trying this one out. As you can see, it's a new software. It's a new time. Most likely, we'll stick with this one for a variety of reasons. It just works better for both of our schedules and everything. And yeah, now we're just gonna slowly start up. Most likely, this stream will have like 3 people, but that's okay. How are you, Paul?
Pretty good. I just wanted to say, I like how you did the intro. Exactly what like a father of 2 kids would. Yeah, like welcome. It's great. It's like I didn't sleep. I don't sleep anymore. I don't care anymore. No, it's just kidding. But like, yeah, it's funny. It's So how's parenting been treating you?
Good. Actually, the reason why we're starting up finally the live streams is because my youngest one has started sleeping. So now my wife and I took like 2 weeks to get sane again, and yes, we're good. And that's why we can finally I can go back to normal groove or whatever, however it's called and everything. And yeah, so it's been good. It's been good. It's been very good.
That's awesome. No, it's glad. Like I miss our chats. It's good.
Same here. Same
so
here.
I'm excited.
How's the Strappy treating you?
It's good.
What's
I love
new?
it. I love Strappy. I'm gonna continue working there. Just because I just like the product. It's still like just blows my mind how if you're a front-end developer and you don't know anything about back-end, you could create like a full stack application with Strappy fairly quickly. And what's awesome, because it's a headless CMS, it doesn't matter what you use for the front. Like you could use like React, you could use Remix, you could use Next.js, you could use Vue. I don't know why. I know a lot of people. I'm just kidding. A lot of people like Vue. I just like to create the drama. Vue is good, but you could use whatever you want, and it's so easy to get started. And like for me, for instance, I'm so lazy that like even like backend, like using like something else like that, like you still have to build it yourself like from scratch, or you have to have like a template. So for me, like I literally just set up Strappy, and because Strappy is so customizable, like I've been, for instance, like playing around with a lot of AI stuff, you could literally just into Strappy add custom controllers, routes, and services like fairly easily and add additional customization. So to me, like I love the product, and so like I'm going to continue working there and building things.
And also, for those of you who missed, Paul went to a Remix conference, and that was, if you didn't watch his talk, you should.
Yeah.
So go to his channel. There's definitely a link somewhere over there. And
yeah. It was a lot of fun. I was so like nervous, but it ended up being like pretty good.
So tell us more. So basically, it was in Utah, yeah.
Yeah, it was in Salt Lake City, which I've never been. And what's like, it's a cool little city. What interesting is they have like a really large like Mormon population. So they're very like religious, and they have certain rules that you might not expect like in other places. Like I don't drink, but it was just still interesting to find out about them. Like for instance, if you go to a bar, like you can't just get a beer to drink. You always have to get a beer with food, and they have like these weird like laws around it. Like, or you can't have like yeah, it's just very interesting. And it's just like funny to see where religion has like a very big like kind of effect on like the lifestyle of the city. But it was really nice, really pretty. The mountains there are great. I went hiking, and I was like, maybe I should move here, but I'm like, no, Texas is the best. I like Texas. I'm gonna stay in
Yeah, I
Texas for a
tried to
while.
get Paul to Florida, and he's like, "Nope, he's
Dude,
gonna
Florida,
stay in
yeah,
Texas. He's not. I cannot persuade him. Maybe someone else can.
yeah,
I'm not
Florida.
able to."
I don't know. I don't know. Too many gators. Too many alligators. It's like,
Yeah, see, it's florified. I'm already
yeah,
floridified.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah, it's just I enjoy visiting Florida, but to live there, like, it's just I don't know why. You know.
But it's hot.
Yes, it's muggy. That's what it is. You
It's
got different
very
heat
hot.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, no, Salt Lake City is like in general, Utah is an interesting. I've visited like 4 or 5 times,
Oh,
and
nice.
it's every time it's something new to me. Like so, yeah, you're right about the religion. That it's one of those things where you right away. I don't notice anywhere else in the United States, but in like once you come into Utah, like it's pretty like it's very hard not to notice the differences because of that and everything. And but the mountains are awesome and everything. And was it over the weekend basically? You came in, you had 2 days with
I think it was like
talks and
Monday
everything.
through Friday.
Oh
I
wow.
think I left on Thursday though, but you could stay Friday. Some people that like stayed for the weekend, and
Mhm.
I should have stayed longer. I just I had to like see my daughter next week, and so I was like I couldn't. But yeah, it was so much fun. Um, Getting involved in conferences is just such a cool thing, and I'm like still like learning, still trying to be better at it. But you know, once you get on stage and do a presentation, regardless how smart you are, people just assume you know what you're talking about. And so, like for me, like the fact that I have that one little, conference talk that I did, I think like sharing it on LinkedIn like gives me like this, um,
Yeah.
aura of expertise that I might not have, but people see they're like, oh, he must know what he's talking about. So, like what I would recommend to a lot of people who are starting out is take advantage and go to meetups, because a lot of meetups, they're like on a smaller size. You meet like cool friends, but a lot of times you could present, you could give talks about anything you like, as long as it's like code related. And it's a great way to kind of practice talking about what you're learning. And also, those talks get recorded and you could add those to like your LinkedIn profile, whatever, to just give you a little bit more oomph in terms of like, hey, like I'm involved in the coding game. Also, like meetups, by the way, every meetup I go to, at the end, they always like have this opportunity to speak. And a lot of people that host the meetup, a lot of them are hiring. And so you could trade information. And I feel like networking has been a good benefit of that. And I've met a bunch of people who are local in Texas. I'm not looking to leave Strapi, but there's some connections I made. Like if I did leave Strapi, they would be the first person to contact, be like, hey, do you still have like opportunity for me, like whatever, because like they already showed that kind of interest, because I was talking to them at Salt Lake City, and they're like, Paul, are you looking for a job? I'm like, no, I'm not. And so I think meetups is just such a great way to grow like a legitimate network of people that could give you opportunities.
No, this one I really like about this story. The basically all instead of just talking is like doing the walk. Where first of all he went to the meetup, he picked whatever technology he liked, like he went with Remix. He again like immersed himself in a community and just it went all the way up to basically giving a conference talk. Like to me, that there's no better way of like,
Yeah.
hey, listen, this is how you do it. This is what worked. Like you just said, listen, this is how you make connections and everything. So I always like will be the first thing you want to do is just immerse yourself in community, meet people who do the same thing, and it's going to be way more valuable than watching for another YouTuber telling you to do something or not to do something or whatever. So
What
yeah.
What's crazy about that experience was a lot of people just saw the final like product where, oh, Paul got to do a conference, and they automatically assume, oh, it's part of his job. It was like he got that connection through Strapi, and it was the opposite. The reason, like John said, it was a lot of work. It's getting interested in technology, immersing yourself in the community, and so what happened is I went to 3 meetups first. I didn't even present. Then I talked to the host and said, hey, like, I'd be interested to give a talk. Do you look for people to give a talk? They're like, yeah, we'd love to have you. I gave 3 talks first at the mini meetup here in Austin. And Brooks, who was the organizer of meetup, he's like, hey, like, you seem to like to talk a lot. And so we're doing this remix conference in EU, all online. It'll be cool if you could MC it. And so I became an MC for the Remix Conf in Europe. And I met Kent C. Dotz, who's like really big in the React community, really big at Remix. I made that connection. And, I built other relationships. That led to me inviting Kent, because now I kind of knew who he was. We met before, like, even though it's online, to talk about Remix at Strapi. And that conversation kind of brought him into awareness. I know who Paul is. Then the connection from Brooks from the Austin meetup. And then when I applied to give a talk at the Remix conference, I had all this prior experience that was like, oh, hey, Paul seems like he'll be a good speaker. And what blew my mind, because I also do some of these live streams where I code, and I used to do a lot of Remix. I still like Remix. I just haven't streamed live coding for a while. But I was kind of shocked. The founders of Remix, they actually checked out my stream to be like, does he know what the hell he's talking about? And they're like, okay. He seems like, And so this connection of all these different touch points of different people kind of knowing who I was, and then having an interesting talk, like it finally got accepted. And so it's like this long journey that led to that pivotal moment. And this is like, I tell the stories because nothing happens overnight, and you kind of have to build those relationships to make that happen. So if someone's discouraged because like, oh, I can't get this job, or this is not happening to me, it takes time, and it takes networking and relationship building.
Yeah, for sure. If you have any questions, just drop it in the chat. We see like, hi everyone, perfect background while working my project. Love the MERN course, by the way, John. Thank you. Finished it a week ago. Yeah, as far as the MERN course, I'm at the moment in the process of actually re-recording. So I switched everything to React Router 6.4 plus or whatever, then the latest Mongoose and some other, basically a React query, everything is the latest technologies and everything. So yeah, it should be out soon, I would say. I'm almost done, like 3/4. So yeah, that's gonna be soon. Pretty much re-recorded the entire, almost the entire React course. At some point re-record Node, but I'm going back home for a while, for like 2 months. It's September. I'm going, so we'll see how much I'll be able to work. 1 or 2 months, we'll see. But yeah, we'll see how much I'll be able to record in that. But yeah. And then as far as the new courses, I have no idea yet. I was telling Paul, I'm kind of leaning towards Remix right now, like a short Remix course, because I really like the approach. I like it took me, like, initially I wasn't happy with the latest React Router setup. I was like, how do you do this? And how do you trigger errors? But then once you build like a big project with it, it's like, okay, now everything makes sense. Why they did it, how it works. And yeah, so that's why I included in the React course, re-recorded in MERN. And I'm kind of thinking Remix because the setup is very similar actually to latest React Router, in my opinion. As far as next, I can tell you right away that it's probably not going to happen for a few reasons. First of all, it's nice that they're updating their API, but it's constantly. So the moment I'm pretty much going to be done with the recording, it's going to be out of date. If you take a look at any course right now, it's out of date as far as next, just because they keep implementing a bunch of new features. And as far as I can see, people are not happy about the
they don't know any better. That's why they don't know any better. It's like if Remix and then you try Next, like it's like, because I think they're copying a lot of stuff that Remix is doing, to be honest. Which I don't know how I feel about it, but I like I never used Next because I hated the way they did things before, and now they have that app folder. To me, it makes way more sense, and now they have server-side components, which also is kind of neat. So I've been playing with it, and I am like working on a mini course that I'd love to share with everyone on John's channel. But I think like they're making things for the best. But to your point, it changes so quickly that next week something new is going to come out, and it's like already.
No, it's definitely like I can tell right away to people. Like I went down this road as far as Gatsby. I pretty much the moment I was done re-recording the version 4, the version 5 came out. And I was sitting that
Jesus
day
Christ.
and I
Yeah.
was like, okay, I'm not never doing this again, because it's like it literally like it went out of the moment I released it. So it's definitely not going to be something as big as React Course, because again, literally, like if anything, yeah, I'm maybe thinking something like maybe 6 to maybe 10 hours, like somewhere in between. Nothing for sure bigger. Where I basically just show the features that I use. So it's not going to be like, okay, this is how you do everything in Next.js, because I do think that they have very extensive documentation. So it's not like you really need to. And also, yeah, like I said, they keep introducing these features. So if you want the course to be up to date, you definitely need to constantly technically, update something or something along those lines. So yeah, we'll see.
What's awesome about Remix is that they're really good about making update path being as simple as possible. So because everything is backwards compatible, but they'll have all the new features that they're thinking of implementing. You have them as a flag that you could turn on. And so
Mhm.
even though like maybe next version of Remix didn't come out yet, you have access to those features, and you could piece by piece update parts of your code. So when the next version of Remix comes out, you don't have to make this huge migration, which to me is like kind of cool and pretty awesome.
For sure, for sure, for sure. I want to ask you a question. So when either with Next.js or with Remix, have you used any of the um what's the name? The state UI libraries like Redux or like anything
No,
like that?
so with Remix, there's really no use to manage store or state, because it's either going to be your component level, so just within and it'll only be for like UI stuff. You're never going to be using like state, maybe like some cases for like data fetching, which is nice because like my Remix application maybe has one use state and one use effect. And the way it works, your database basically becomes your source of truth, and that's what manages your state, and that's where you get your data from, which is kind of cool. And I like that. And Next.js is obviously copying Remix in my opinion, but like whatever.
Oh
But
no,
they're
but they even openly like admit that they basically kind of, what their argument is like, listen, the competition is gonna make like sense for everyone. So I don't think they're even like, because they're not even hiding, I don't think. Because
yeah,
if you take a look like the initially journey when the Gatsby and Next.js started, Next.js at that point they were not able to do static assets. When I started
yeah.
looking at both of them, and that was one of the things that Gatsby provided that. And of course, a year later or something, Next was also able to do it. So that's one of the ways how Next actually became popular, because it was using the features from other whatever frameworks or setups and was implementing it. And of course, you get the benefit of that. So that's definitely the case. Do you see the question or no?
Yeah. Sunny
Okay.
says, do programmers really need to memorize code, functions, properties, and methods, or do they just learn the concepts and go through documentation for development? It's a good question.
I mean, you don't. In my opinion, you don't need to. As far as, again, let's break it up. Memorize code. No, I wouldn't say like there's a bunch of like every time I pretty much build something, I always go through my own code examples of how I was implementing the feature, or obviously using modern tools like Google and ChatGPT. And a spoiler alert, so I really want to say something that, you know, there's been a bunch of talk about ChatGPT, and it's an awesome tool, and I use it, and I have to subscribe to it and everything. But it makes mistakes. So one of the things I think that people are like, they punch in some whatever line of code, and it spits out the website, and they're like, that's it. Developers are obsolete now. And it's like, well, not really, because if you provide, like, again, I'm not talking about every question, but once in a while you provide a question, it gives you a total different, like, wrong answer. And
So
I know that for sure.
that's a very good point, because it's funny because everybody who doesn't know about like coding, they have these like wild assumptions like, oh, I could just tell ChatGPT create this whole application, which it won't. But at the same time, the reason I'm able to use ChatGPT because I understand the code like it gives me back. So if you don't understand coding and you don't know the basics, like whatever ChatGPT returns to you, you will have no idea like what the hell it does. And at the same point to like what John just said, it makes mistakes. Sometimes they'll tell you to implement this library that doesn't exist. They'll just make stuff up. Like I had that happen so many times. I'm like, Jesus, this is not a thing. Like, what are you doing? But it's a great tool. And I use it not to help me like not to do my work for me, but I use it as like a programming buddy that I could have discussions about what I'm doing.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's definitely you can. There's multiple ways how you can implement the chat GPT, and for me, it's definitely the case where even if it's wrong, it might lead you to the right direction, but it's exactly like Paul said. You still need to understand what's happening. If you're just saying that I'm just going to type, whatever, something that I don't know about, and I'll say, hey, ChatGPT, give me the code. And then you, like, let's say, try to run it. There's quite often it's actually going to be wrong and you'll have to make some changes. Yeah, you might make those changes by discussing it with ChatGPT. You might be like, hey, listen, this doesn't work. And it's usually like, oh, my apologies.
Yeah, it's always apologize. Like, why? It's like, why the hell did you give me the wrong answer if you knew that you're going to apologize in the next sentence and then give me the correct one?
But it's also funny how it sometimes gets stuck. So it's like, you're like, hey, this is wrong. And gives you this whatever answer, right?
Oh, like this infinite circle. Yeah.
And then you're like, well, okay, but wait a minute, this also doesn't work. And then it's like goes back to the first one, like, listen, we went through this already before. And poor thing is like, my apologies, my apologies.
Yeah,
my
apologies. What's funny about it is that there's so much hype videos on YouTube that people start to believe the magic that ChatGPT somehow is magical. And what people sometimes forget, ChatGPT is literally a random word generator that's just like smart about statistically knowing what's the next word that should come up that will make sense. But it has no concept of like code. It doesn't understand outside of just randomly generating stuff based on statistical like information. I guess then it's not random. It's whatever, but like it has no idea what the hell it's talking about. It really has no concept. Like when someone says like, oh, hey, do you know John? I'm like, yeah, like an image of John comes up. I think of your courses. I think like ChatGPT doesn't have that perception. And so I think like a lot of people give it a lot more agency than it has. But at the same time, as a tool, especially if you learn how to like prompt correctly, and you could come up with like some cool use cases that could help you kind of make your workflow much faster.
Yeah, I mean, I know that we're kind of switching away from this question to ChatGPT, but since it's been, well, we were away since the entire hype happened, so we definitely sooner or later we would have to discuss it. But yeah, for me, it comes down to like few things. First of all, what I find interesting is that people always like, oh, programmers are going to be, obsolete and everything. But if you actually look at it, if we are really going down this road that, professions are going to be obsolete, then the way I see it, there's going to be many more professions before a programmer who ChatGPT are going to make obsolete. For starters, right? You technically, like, I use it a lot to correct basically my grammar mistakes. I'm like, hey, here's the text and just fix it. Yeah, so there's going to be there's going to be less need for people who do that. Actually, the same for translations. Yes, it's going to make mistakes right now, but eventually it's going to catch up and everything. So I do think that it's also like, if you're really going down this road and you say, okay, this is going to be obsolete, that is going to be obsolete, then there's actually way more professions that need to worry about way more than at the moment, at least, as programmers.
So I look at it as anybody who's looking to learn to code now, you now have this amazing tool that could help you learn coding faster. And when someone says that you're worried that ChatGPT is going to get rid of jobs, and I feel like it's going to get rid of like low producer jobs, like someone who's like lazy, someone who like is not trying to like make effort to code, like, yeah, you're going to be replaced with another developer who's using AI tools to kind of be more productive. So I think it's good for everybody. After I started using ChatGPT, like I've learned so much stuff just through conversation that I had. And like a lot of people like, man, do you do data structures, algorithm training? It's like, listen, have a conversation about like data structures, algorithms, and building that app is like by far the fastest way to kind of like learn, because you kind of talk through the process with somebody. So it's like having your own tutor that you could talk about code. And to me, that has been like super helpful.
Yeah, for me, like as far as creating the application, actually, the GitHub Copilot has been way more
Yeah.
productive. Especially, I know that there's now the feature where you can basically get like a Chat GPT, but it's basically related to your code. I don't know what's the right one,
Yeah.
what's the right name for that, but I think Copilot released that option where you get like a chatbot with you, and
Yeah.
it only sees your code, so it's only like focused on that instead of
That's
just this
awesome.
random whatever, you know. But Copilot has been way more like advantageous to me than, yes, ChatGPT is awesome, but I do find it like one thing that I want to discuss here is that people say, well, it generates basically a bunch of text, right? So I can say, hey, what is JavaScript, and it's going to give me nice 2 sentences. So of course, a bunch of things that you see is that they say, well, now you know you can make a blog very easy because it's just going to generate text for you. But then my question is, if ChatGPT is so popular where everyone pretty much goes there to get the answers, how much really people are going to be searching with Google? Like if I can find out info on that instead of reading through 5 blog posts, how valuable those blog posts become if basically, you know, I can go to ChatGPT and just get the answer that I'm looking for. So that's something that I'm thinking.
Yeah, 100%. Like once ChatGPT came out, like 10 times, I was going to say 10 times out of 10, like it's like 9 times out of 10, I go to ChatGPT first, and then I'll go to directly to the documentation of the technology that I'm using. But I haven't used Stack Overflow. I haven't used Google that often. It's just, yeah, definitely going to kill that search for sure. And now ChatGPT has this ability for you to put URLs, and they'll go and scrape the data, and you could have conversation about the data. Like there's a cool thing, like this is like for the paid feature. If you have ChatGPT 4, you could literally take a link from your GitHub, you could put in ChatGPT, and you could ask a question about the content on that link. And so like you could literally discuss someone's code on GitHub with ChatGPT, which I think is pretty awesome. There's like so many cool things like you can do. So I'm just going to kind of say like my plan, whenever I build personal projects now, my requirement, it has to be like some tech stack that's related to work. And then the other part of it, somehow it has to touch AI in some way. So all of my applications, it's like, let's say I'm using Next.js or Remix to build a thing. The other part of it, like how can I use like OpenAI API to create some cool use case for it? So to me, I'm a big believer that the more literate or comfortable you become with using ChatGPT, your prompting is just going to help you be a better developer.
Have you used extensively the OpenAI, the actual API?
Yeah. So I was gonna make a course where I made the random character generator, also share with you, but I decided to kind of make that next. But I've been using it for a lot of use cases. So the simple thing I started with is I created this application where you're able to make cyberpunk characters. So randomly generate the image for the character, and then they'll have like a backstory and a little bit like snippet about them. And then the second part of that app, you could hit a chat function, and you'll be able to talk to the characters you generated, and they're going to respond to you in character based on their backstory and whatever. So that was kind of cool. The next implementation of it, there's this library called LangChain, and they have it in TypeScript. It's more commonly used in Python, but now they have it in TypeScript. So you could give memory to your chatbot. So now you could have a chat where a user gives information, or like throughout the chat, like you're talking, let's say, I'll say my name is Paul and I was born in 1980, whatever, like it'll remember that. So now you can make these like chatbots where the chatbot will remember what you talked about. So when you come back, you could continue your conversation. And then on the other side, because chatbot remembers like what you talked about, you could use that chat history to extract the information. Like for instance, like I had this many people at the chatbot, give me like relative information that I should know based on that conversation and summarize it. So there's like interesting things like that. The next thing that I'm building with ChatGPT is I want to create this CLI tool where it will look through your code and it will auto comment your code for you if you want to. And then it could also create like documentation based on like what code you wrote and make like a separate README file. So like that way I don't have to do that myself. So like sometimes like I'll forget what the hell I did. Like I just go back and see it. So that tool is coming along, but I ended up like getting distracted. And so I made a CLI tool where it doesn't matter where you point at your code. It just makes fun of your code in like the most brutal way. It just ranks at you. It's hilarious. But I feel like integrating AI into like your apps is pretty cool. And so I discovered that I have ADHD recently. And so next thing, what I wanted to do is I wanted to create like a to-do app with AI kind of like functionality where I'm able to have it summarize my tasks and tell me which is the most important task I should do first, and then have basically allow you to have conversation about what you're doing to help you kind of stay motivated. So it will be kind of like a self-coach. Instead of just like sometimes I'll forget to do something, it could be like, hey, like you have this task due on like whatever, July 16, and it seems important, and it will remind me what the task is. So I feel like there's all these cool things you could do. So I'm
I haven't tried it yet. I definitely will soon. But listen, can you right away communicate from the front end, or it needs to be through the server?
You could do it from the front end. One thing I would say, like if you're doing from the front end, you can't do it client side because you're exposing your API key. So you will need to have like some sort of
serverless function or something.
Yeah, and that like, so if you're using Remix, it's easy to do. If you're using Next.js, it's really easy to do. For me, what I do, because like when I create like these AI functionalities, like I made a Chrome extension which summarizes short videos and converts them into blog posts and automatically posts them on my website. So I don't have to do any blog post writing because I'm lazy. I can just steal other people's content. I'm just kidding. I did it as a joke because there's this person, whatever. I wanted to troll them by stealing their content easily. But anyway, it doesn't matter. But the cool thing is, like for me, like I find myself, if I'm doing a bunch of front-end applications, I'm always like recreating those functions. So what I did is I created one Strapi like instance. And because in Strapi, you could create, custom controllers, routes, and services. So I put all that AI functionality into Strapi. And so whenever I'm building a front-end project, I don't have to recreate that functionality in that particular front-end project. It already exists in Strapi. So I'll just, from my front-end project, call that Strapi instance. And so my goal is to have this library of things, like you'll have like image generation, summarizer, audio to text, video to text, or summary to blog, like whatever. So I'll have these little functions living on my Strapi instance that I could then call from any application that I want. Because I just like find myself, for me, it makes sense because I found myself recreating things multiple times in all the different apps I'm building.
But it is a paid option, right? The OpenAI.
Yeah, you have to pay for it. They do have like a free trial. And again, like unless you have like a business around where you're making like so many calls, it's not that expensive. There's their new model, like they have like Chat 3.5 Turbo. It's the best and the cheapest. So I end up using it over ChatGPT 4 because ChatGPT 4 is a bit pricey.
Yeah. No, that was one of the things I was trying to sign up for ChatGPT, like the paid version. And for some reason, I just initially signed up actually for the OpenAI one. but I never got the chance to actually implement it yet. I know that it's basically based on the query, so I think he even did counts the characters or something like that. And
Yeah.
what's interesting is that like it counts all together. So let's say essentially you ask the question, it gives you the answer. And I believe, as far as I remember when I was listening to Syntax, that the next time when you're sending in the question, it actually counts everything up to that point. So that's why it's kind of adding quite quite quickly. But I mean, it's still considerably cheap. But
Yeah.
the way they count everything.
Yeah, they have a couple of different things. They have like text completion, and then they have chat completion. And with chat completion, if you wanted to kind of remember the context of the conversation, you have to pass the previous history and making requests. And like you said, that will add up.
It's basically like it's every time, like let's say if I have 2 sentences, then as I'm
3,
sending
4,
in, it's
5,
it's
6.
already like right
Yeah.
away, counting all of that. Katya has a very good point before. That's also that I was thinking that if everyone uses ChatGPT to write blog posts, though, we won't have anything original anymore. And that's the case where it generates really like solid text. But you know that a lot of times when somebody writes a blog post, I mean, it doesn't have to be about tech. Like in most cases, the good blog posts have personality. Whatever it, a lot of times it's either joke or it's either whatever, some kind of some kind of one-liners, whatever. And as far as ChatGPT, I don't think it can do that yet.
So
like
no, and one thing I want to be like really clear about this, like ChatGPT can't even create original content. It is a mashup of the data sets that it has. It's not able to create anything new, where it makes stuff sound very believable, but it'll never create like original art. It'll never create an original blog post. It'll just take the data sets that it has and create some variation on that. For instance, like one good way to think about it, like for instance, let's say I wanted use a AI model to make music, and I was like, what would jazz with classical music and hip hop sound together? Because those are, let's say, styles that already exist. Yeah, I'll be able to create some sort of mashup. But if I'll tell it, can you generate a new style of music, it won't be able to do it. It'll just take a bunch of stuff that it knows before and do some sort of mashup. Where like, like for instance, like if before jazz was invented, it didn't exist, like ChatGPT would not be able to figure that out on its own. Like a person would have to like come up with that idea, like create, jazz, and then train the data, and then AI will understand jazz.
I mean, it's basically very good at gathering all the info,
yes,
and then coming out with like variations by giving you a response. And that's how you can even generate multiple. You can be like, tell me what is JavaScript, tell me another answer, and it's basically just going to keep on, recycling the data just to give you some kind of answer that you're looking for. So yeah, I find that one. I mean, of course, it's like, listen, it's super, super cool, in my opinion, a super cool technology. I just think that as always, what I find it annoying is that, again, there's a bunch of clickbait stuff happening. And it's
so
also
much.
like people are misled of what it can and cannot do.
90% of YouTube right there. Yeah.
At this point, again, things might change. As far as I understand, this is like it's not the latest model, so they're still working on next one. But again, at this point in time, I just think that I find it funny how always it's like a lot of things are taken out of the context and just clickbait. And
the sad part about it, I literally talked to people who were literally like, I don't want to learn to code anymore because there's no jobs left. I'm like, I didn't say you idiot, but I was just like, no, there's jobs left. Like there's, if anything, use the technology to learn things faster. Like there's a lot of opportunities. Somebody said to me, would I do things differently? I would like to this, like I told my daughter, like, she's going back to university. I'm not trying to tell her what to do, but I'm trying to encourage her heavily. But I was like, yeah, go into like computer science, go into programming, you'll always have opportunity. And kind of interesting thing. So when someone, I got to preface this with this, if someone's trying to get a job and break into the industry fast, going the front end route is the fastest way to do it. And the way I got hired, I literally took John's HTML, CSS course, his React course, his JavaScript course. And literally as I finished his React course. I had a few of his projects in my portfolio. I also built my own. I went to a job interview and I was able to get hired based on all the things I learned from your courses. And also my portfolio projects, which was pretty awesome. And once I got hired, then I started to try to look to make that transition to full stack or backend, because full stack and backend, there's so much stuff to learn that you're not going to be able to find a quick path to get a job as a full stack developer. But what's awesome, once you're a front end and you get hired, you're getting paid, you're learning on the job, and then you could learn whatever the heck you want. And so that's the route I went. Some people go to boot camp, but now that I've been working on the industry, I know I have a job. I'm on my like 4th job now. I like to get another job. It's not going to be that difficult. It's not going to be easy, but it's like I've already paid my dues. I built my experience. And so now I'm like, where do I go next? So now after you have a job, you could always go back to school. You could always like continue learning on your own. And so now that my daughter is going back to school, I want to kind of do things with her together. And so I decided like I'm going to take like courses part-time out of college just so I have something relatable that I do with my daughter. But then I was like, I don't want to like take anything random. What should I do? And so I figured like I'll go do something related to like artificial intelligence just because it's fun, it's interesting. And so the thing that I wanted to say is someone who's looking to learn to code, you could totally do it on your own. And what I would say, you could spend a lot of time upfront. Let's say if you go like full college, like if you're young, definitely go to college. I'm just going to say if you're 18, 19, 20, like whatever, go for the experience and don't go online. Go where you could hang out with people like physically. That's cool. But if you're older and you're looking to transition, taking 4 years of school versus let me spend a year and a half, self-taught, bootcamp, whatever, to get hired, I think it's like a better approach. And you get to your job faster, and you could always continue your education as you work.
Okay, we have quite a few questions, so we can do what's the name of that, where it's like rapid response?
Yeah, let's do it.
Or yeah, I see. I was before the live stream, I knew how it was called, and now when I'm live,
I like rapid response questions. It's like it's like the SWAT team jumping out the window answering questions. Before we hit the ground, I got to give you the answer to your question.
It was kind of like there was very good
rapid
name
fire.
Anyway,
rapid fire.
Rapid fire.
Yeah, is that what it was?
Yeah.
Rapid fire.
So, should I study lead code for front-end jobs? If so, when should I start to incorporate it? And we have discussed this question, I believe, in pretty much every live stream, and it depends on your job that you're going for. In my opinion, the first job's no. Again, unless you want to use it somehow. But in general, I think it's more important to showcase that you can build a project, and then as you get the experience, then you can start actually learning lead code. What do you think?
Yeah, same. I agree, especially if it's like your first job. Like I've been in the industry 4 years now, and I'm just now starting to spend a little bit more time on lead code. Not lead code particular. I actually don't use lead code, but try to learn higher concept of data structures and where they fit in. But in my 4 years, outside of like the basics, like working with arrays and objects, like I've never used like, let's say like a tree data structure to accomplish something at my job. Like so my answer would be no. Like, and the path that I follow and what I recommend, exactly what John says, is like learn whatever you need for your front end role, and then build a bunch of good stuff, and then practice going to interviews and talking about the things that you built. And yeah, that would be my thing. But as you get hired, you will learn those things in a more organic way. I'll give you an example. Like my last job, I had to figure out how to take an array of date ranges and then be able to calculate which dates overlap, and then turn them into like one date range. And through that process of doing that, like I ran into some issues, and that led me on like exploring like, what's the right way of doing this? Like, do I need to do like a specific data structure? Then I realized that I needed a queue, blah, blah, blah. And then there was like a bunch of looping that happens, and you never know like how many date ranges you're going to have. And so I had to kind of think like, do I do like a normal loop, or do I do a recursive function? And that sent me down this rabbit hole of learning about those things. And so I feel like you're going to learn data structures and algorithms organically through solving problems at work. But if you're applying to FANG companies, like, then you need it. That's like the only caveat.
Well, yeah, I don't want to be a dream crusher, but I, in my opinion, it's very hard to be your first job as basically get to your first job in a FANG. So my point is that essentially the companies who are going to hire you for your first job, most likely they are smaller companies who want to see that you can build stuff instead of the algorithms. And then once you get the experience in those companies, when you apply to FANG, yeah, of course, then at that point it switches. Now you have to showcase that you can solve those problems. But again, that wouldn't be my kind of first approach. Then again, Katya had a good one. Should I? Oh no, sorry, that was the wrong one. I already got her. So it's a good for a dry, like basically when we were talking about ChatGPT, she mentioned that it's a good for dry stuff like law. I reckon it will probably replace lawyers eventually. So this is what I was trying to say before, where like there's so much talks on like AI replacing programmers, and yet we're kind of nicely skipping over all the professions that it can actually replace far faster. So where I'm going with this, I always avoid like this predicting future, since no one can. And if anyone says that they can, it's total BS, because it's not the case. So I rather make my decisions based on how I see things instead of how they are going to be eventually. So right now, what am I going to go to gardening and say, hey, AI is going to replace everything, so I'm just going to be working in a garden where no one is going to replace me? Most likely not, because I'm not interested in that. So I definitely suggest just making your decisions based on what are you actually want to work, instead of what the future is going to be in 5 years, because no one knows.
I was going to say, what do you mean you can't predict the future? I know at some point we're going to end this conversation. I know at some point I'm going to have lunch and possibly dinner. I don't know. That's predicting the future, right? With high accuracy. And then at some point I'm going to take a nap,
But if I was able to predict the future, then I would I definitely know which stocks to invest, and then I wouldn't be sitting here. I would just be sitting in my golden island and whatever. Doing
exactly.
So.
Funny story about eventually replacing lawyers. So there was like a lawyer who used ChatGPT to create all his arguments, and ChatGPT created cases that did not exist, and that lawyer did not do his due diligence to research if those were actual cases. Yeah. And the judge called him out on his bullshit. And I'll be surprised if the person doesn't lose their job. So be careful. Yeah. ChatGPT, like anything, is a tool, but it's not magic, and you need to do your due diligence. And so replacing jobs, it's not going to happen overnight. There's going to be a transitionary period. And what I would say to a lot of folks is if you're worried, is going to replace my job. Like for instance, when VCRs were a thing, people who fix VCRs are like, oh, this is all I do. I fix VCRs. Then the DVD came out. And then all the people that refused to learn how to fix DVD players lost their right. Then DVDs disappeared, and all of a sudden we have media on our, streamed. And it's okay, those people that can no longer replace fixed DVD device, what do I do? Well, they should continue to level up and continue to see and follow the trend to kind of see where the world is going and the times. And but for development, it's going to take a long time. And what I would say, it will replace, if I had to make my guess, and not like John says, you can't predict the future, what I would say, with ChatGPT and some sort of programming competency, you're going to be almost as good as a mid-level developer as a beginner. And the only case that I see it's replacing people is someone who's literally not trying to get better at coding, and we're kind of getting by at their job barely. And so if they're not utilizing UI tools to make themselves like more productive, like they're going to get replaced by developers that are really good at searching things, good at discussing their code with ChatGPT to come to the final result like much faster.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not the case where I definitely don't discourage using it, and you should definitely implement it. It's just, I think in like you're spot on where instead of like relying on it to pretty much do the job for you, it's your best kind of like assistant who's like, hey, listen, like I even go back and I go like, hey, listen, can you simplify this code? And it's like it shows me the things that I wasn't like even thinking about. And I'm like, oh, okay, this makes sense. So now I'm going to implement that in the future when I'm setting up my code. So you can learn a bunch of things. So if you, in my opinion, if you use it as a learning tool, it's just awesome. The same as Copilot. It's very, very useful. But just again, going back to that, clickbait info of all the time just saying how, pretty much life is over and now it's ChatGPT. Yeah, I just find it ridiculous.
For me, using ChatGPT was easy because I have an uncle who always makes up stories. And I was like, ChatGPT is just like my uncle who will occasionally make up stories that I don't know if they're true or not. So I have to find other resources to kind of check his information.
And by the way, we skipped over something very important all this time. I just remember when you made the joke. Paul has podcast, not null.
Oh my goodness,
we haven't discussed it.
Yeah.
First of all, when do you record it? Once a week?
So it's once a week. We usually record it on Wednesdays. It's with Bobby Davis, Kevin, and then we just got a new hostess. Oh my God, the name is going blank. But she does a YouTube channel called Family Tech. So we don't talk about coding per se, but we talk about like whatever tech trends are, which is really, really fun podcast. But with that being said, to be honest, I'm glad you were able to make some time and get back to the Web Dev Power Hour, because I think that's still like, where it's at. That's where it's at. This is where all the cool people hang out, This is so I'm really happy for that.
Yeah, no, I was thinking about implementing the topics, but then I remember we tried to do that and it didn't work over here. So I guess we're just gonna stick with the random talk.
No, but this is awesome because people ask questions and stuff like that. So yeah, like there's so many like good comments, and like a lot of times like Don has a good one. ChatGPT replaces screenwriters, and I think like what I would say right now, where we at, ChatGPT will replace bad screenwriters. ChatGPT or mediocre. ChatGPT will replace like the lower level. Like if you like basically anyone who's at their job that's doing the minimum amount of work to get by and not making any effort to grow themselves, that's what AI will replace. It will replace it'll basically help us filter through people that don't care for what they do and are not trying to make an effort. You know what I mean? And so I feel like, don't worry, use it as a tool and try to be the best that you can be in your role. And then you have nothing to worry about.
Alex has a good one. I never used a list, for example. Almost 3 years I've been in the game. And yeah, that's always like, I always like to use Alex as an example, because for starters, he works on a back end, which is kind of unique, especially for this live stream, since most of us are front-end developers. And also he has been doing it for a while and he for a company. So if anything, if you if you want to find out how actually things are, that for sure Alex is go-to guy. And plus, as far as I checked, he's now at the already, maybe not a senior yet. I believe he said that he made already. So yeah.
I was also gonna say I really like his photo here. Very confident, got that tattoo, glasses, looking at distance like I got my shit together. I'm gonna steal his photo, put it on my dating profile so I can get more leads. Sorry, Alex. I need
somewhere
to use
on a beach.
Any opportunity I get to that's another good use case of AI. So I was looking to create a chat which will do like auto respond to my dating app, just so I don't have to have that conversation and they'll figure out who's the best person for me. I figured that would be the best thing for me. Good use of AI. So I don't have to it'll test different dating profiles for me, like Is this picture get more response? Was that one? Just kidding. I gave up on dating, to be honest. So funny story. I completely like this. So I'm sitting at Starbucks. So I started going to Starbucks, right? Because like there's people there. I might meet somebody, right? And then this girl comes up and starts talking to me. And then we decide like starts talking, and it's kind of interesting. And I'm literally sitting there like, listen, I just want to get back to my coding right now. Like, what are you doing? Which is kind of counterproductive if you're single and you're trying to find a date. But I was like more interested in coding. So I realized like I need someone who shares my passion for either jujitsu, music, or coding. Otherwise, like I just don't know what we're going to talk about.
So essentially you need a programmer.
Yeah, I need a programmer.
Okay. So
yeah, that's it. That's it. I need someone to do my work for me. Hey, I can't figure this out. Can you please do this for me? I know it's terrible. It's terrible. It's whatever.
So Northern Chim has someone in another chat said that they were afraid ChatGPT would take their job. Hence, they are learning to code. Their job is writing, editing contents for a website. I mean, Paul kind of already touched upon that. But yeah, basically, if you're having like if the job is something that can be easily replaced, then that's going to be the scenario that there's. I mean, it's been happening for centuries already. People evolve, industrial revolution and all kinds of things. So yeah, I think it's just a matter of time for a lot of jobs. But again, it doesn't happen overnight, and I believe there is always this process where you just need to shift to something else. So who knows? Maybe in a year we'll be. This is going to be different live stream. We're going to be talking about different professions.
I don't know. ChatGPT, like what I wanted to replace TypeScript, so I don't have to learn it. I just want all my code to automatically be typed because of ChatGPT. Because TypeScript, man, who wants to learn TypeScript? It's like I think I'm the only person in the world left who still sucks at TypeScript. I think that's.
Yeah, no, TypeScript has been it's kind of
picking up steam. Like you need it now. I tell people like after JavaScript, React, I tell like do like one TypeScript course for sure.
Yeah, see, Alex says TypeScript is awesome.
Alex, that's your opinion and you're entitled to. No, I'm just kidding. TypeScript is awesome. There's just a lot of like boilerplate, like especially if you're starting to build out your application, you are doing more stuff. But at the same time, what I found when I work in a TypeScript project and I go back to using vanilla JS, you're like, what is going on? Like you start to miss its features. But no, TypeScript, you definitely need it moving forward for sure.
Oh, wow. Alex is saying that he's like working with trying out Java. And he's saying it's JavaScript on steroids. Well, that's not my opinion. I did Java when I was learning the university, and I'm so happy that there's JavaScript. Yeah,
there's a better version of Java. It's called C#. Although a Java developer will say there's a better C# version. It's called Java, so that joke works both ways.
That's there. So Nikolai has a good one. Because when you're talking about girls in tech, is your pool of options is not big, Paul, if she needs to be in tech. And yeah, that's
dude, I'm very picky. I much rather be like single and wait for the right person than to open my standards and also, yeah, my ex-fiance spoiled me. She set the bar too high and I refuse to go backwards. It's messed up. I know it's messed up, but it's like, that's what happens.
Okay, but she wasn't in tech.
She wasn't in tech.
So now you just set the bar higher by just jamming that one in there as well. It's like you shot yourself in the foot.
I shot myself in the foot. No, I said jujitsu, music, or tech. Like one of those three. If you do jujitsu, it's a plus. Muay Thai, jujitsu, music, and tech. That's like, I could add yoga to the list. So that's pretty wide range of options.
No, but that is a good point where essentially like that's one of those things where when you work at home, everything is awesome. You enjoy your job and everything, but as far as just human connection, you do need to have something. Otherwise, just sitting inside of the room forever. I mean, maybe works for some people, but for me, I purposely have jujitsu just so I can just get out of the house and see what the world looks like.
Alex over there. It sounds like Paul likes to be. Nobody likes to be single, first of all. But what I was gonna say, like, I did my last stream talking about how I might be going back to like university, taking part-time classes, just like a local community college. And someone's like, "Man, look at Paul wanting to level up," and I'm sitting there like, "What are you talking about? I just want to go in person to have access to more people that I could meet and be friends with, possibly hence fine, nice girl, nice girl." Although my mom keeps telling me I need to find a good Ukrainian girl, which I'm like, yeah, if I could only find them. Oddly enough, the complex I live in, there's like 30 Ukrainians. They're all married, of course. So like, obviously I'm not gonna, ruin relationships, but it's just, it's funny how many Ukrainians here where I live, which I had no idea in Texas. So there might be a chance.
Okay, so on this awesome note, it's 1 hour, so I think we will finish for this week, and we'll see you next week. So the idea again is that we're just going to be switching this time to Fridays now.
Works good.
And it's going to be what it comes out 12 o'clock Eastern time. So
I was just gonna quickly say, John, like if AI replaces us, you and I starting Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu school. I'm just saying that's gonna be our
well, you could
pivot.
start
Our pivot. No, we need like assist. Well, no, like you need the main instructor, assistant instructor. It will work, whatever.
I wouldn't qualify for or any kind of instructor.
We just teach beginners, so be fine.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the warm up I can teach.
There you go. There you go.
Anyway, it was awesome to see everyone. It was awesome to chat and everything. And we'll try to get back to normal and set it up this as a weekly thing. So I'll post it for next week and everything. It was awesome to see everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
We will meet next week.
Have a good weekend.
All right.